Welcome to another episode of the Crowley Connect. As many of you know, this is March, which means it's Women's History Month. And this year's theme celebrates women who advocate for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And right here at Milwaukee County, we are extremely lucky to have incredible female leaders working towards reaching our goal of equity right here within our community. Now, one of those leaders is at the helm of this work and is our special guest today. And I will ask you all to welcome Sumaiyah Clark, who is our new Chief Equity Officer within the Milwaukee County Office of Equity. Welcome to the program, Sumaiyah.
Thank you, County Executive Crowley. I'm so honored to have the opportunity to serve as the Chief Equity Officer, and I'm also really excited to be here with you today. So thank you so much for having me.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you were able to make it onto this episode. And to be honest with you, it's really exciting to actually introduce our viewers to our new Chief Equity Officer. And so for those who may not know, I appointed Sumaiyah to this role in November of 2023. But honestly, she is no stranger to Milwaukee County, as she's been helping us to advance our work of equity actually for a while. And so her previous role was actually within the Department of Health and Human Services. And if I'm not mistaken, Sumaiyah, you actually co-authored the department's first workplace equity and inclusion statement and developed a diversity equity readiness assessment as well as a DEI audit tool. Now, as our Chief Equity Officer, why is working towards an equitable workplace so important to you?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And honestly, I believe that my passion for achieving equity really stems from the influence of my grandfather. Now, my grandfather was a business owner in Chicago, but before that, and I think one of the things that was most important to him was the fact that he was a veteran of the Korean War. And he advocated for veterans' rights. And he also taught my family the importance of service to others and that we each have the responsibility of making our communities better, especially when you think about advocating for people whose voices are often not heard. And so my goal is to use a similar philosophy in the Office of Equity, right? And so that philosophy includes utilizing like a values-driven approach that prioritizes service to others, partnership, as well as data-informed decision-making. And so as we think about that, going back to those examples that you shared, so when I developed that readiness assessment, it took consultation with national organizations like Race Forward or Policy Link. It also required collaboration with department leaders across Milwaukee County, and most importantly, listening to community members so that the work that we were doing and the policies that we were looking to establish were really in response to the needs that community members have.
Absolutely. I appreciate that answer. Very thoughtful answer. I mean, you talk about the foundation that you have, but also, I mean, when we talk a lot about like reaching equity, particularly within Milwaukee County, like you can't do this by yourself, right? And you talk about the partners that you have to bring to the table. And I even think about that with our vision that by achieving racial equity, Milwaukee County is the healthiest county in the state of Wisconsin. But can you really help explain what does equity really means, but also, what other steps do you think that we need to take or are taking to work towards achieving racial equity as a goal?
Absolutely. So a really simple way to think about equity, oftentimes I like to think about equality versus equity, right? So when you think about equality, that means that you're giving every single person the same thing, regardless of what their needs are. And so you have such a powerful vision because the goal of that vision is to actually get to understand and know the needs of each person, each group within Milwaukee County, and then make sure that our policy follows that, as opposed to, this idea where the policy is what is like driving or defining what's kind of like left over for people. And so it is definitely a person-centered, community-centered approach to be able to improve the needs to enable that enables us to address the needs of people and increase their health outcomes. So that's really what we think about equity. And so
Okay.
the other, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to
Oh,
stop you on the road, so I'm
oh,
sorry.
okay. So some of the other things when you talk about the work that we're doing, just to give you an example, so we received significant funds through like opioid settlement dollars or through recovery funds so that people are able to really do better than they were prior to COVID. I think that's the goal that we all have, and so. One example of that is to be able to invest in, the safe, affordable housing that is available to people who live here.
Right.
And so the Office of Equity was able to partner with the Department of Health and Human Services, the Community Development Alliance, and others to be able to do community listening sessions so that as we are developing the project that's actually going to build, one of those projects is going to build 120 homes in the King Park
Right.
neighborhood. Well, we wanted to make sure that our efforts around that were community centered and we're going to meet the needs of the families who are eligible for those homes, right? So in every single thing that we do, we're trying to make sure that it's not a touch point with community, but community is actually at the table from the beginning and their needs are prioritized. So that's just one example of one of the ways that we're working to achieve equity with partnership, with research, with the resources that we have.
And I think that you're really speaking to the glue that the Milwaukee County Office of Equity really is, right? Because the work is exclusively for you and your team, because everyone should be playing a role, right? Everybody has a part to play when it comes down to making our community more equitable. I mean, when you're talking about addressing all the inequities, whether we're talking race, gender, sexual orientation, ability, status. I mean, it's when we're talking about making sure that we're tackling all these different issues. This is good for our entire community as a collective. Again, when the tide rises, we need all these boats to rise. And so I guess one question I would ask Sumaiyah, what would you say to the community as far as like how can they support or help in moving this work forward, right? Like we're doing this work as a government organization, but how can the community get involved? Whether they're talking about assisting what we're doing, but what they can do in their own neighborhoods.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's actually the most powerful place to start is in your own backyard, right? Going back to the initial example I gave about my grandfather, he always talked about the importance of, starting in your own backyard in your own community, just checking on a neighbor. So one of the things is be a good example of what community is to your neighbors. So that's
Yeah,
one awesome way
yeah.
to start, right? Um, Something else is to, put forth an effort to learn. So I know our office is really beefing up our website where we will be showcasing the tools that you mentioned, as well as other things that are taking place across the county, and then some national resources as well. So if you want to learn more about what equity means and you want to learn more about what the county is already doing to advance equity, you'll be able to access that from the website. There's also a lot of amazing dashboards that different county departments have been able to put on the website where you can actually track our progress towards advancing equity, right? So the first thing, be a good neighbor, understand, like what's happening in your area. The second thing, look for ways to educate yourself. The third thing that I would say as people who live in the community, this is a pivotal role year to be able to think about our role in sharing our voice with our elected officials, right? So, if you have the opportunity, I would definitely say, exercise your voice throughout, this year. And then the last thing, people can definitely like reach out. We are looking to do, like several community listening sessions. This is also a big year. It's the 5-year anniversary for the declaration that racism is a public health crisis. That'll be coming up on May
Yes.
19th. So there'll be opportunities that we'll be sharing for people to get involved in those efforts as well.
Well, it's crazy that we're celebrating 5 years since that declaration already. Now, it is Women's History Month, and I do want to talk get your opinion, particularly what it means to be a female leader within Milwaukee County government. And for those who may not know, over half of my cabinet is actually comprised of women, comprised of women, and so who are really leading the charge and really doing their thing throughout all the different departments. And so I'm really excited to see their leadership in action. But Sumaiyah, why is it important for you, particularly in government, for women to be represented?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. So, honestly, there's so many reasons, but just because this is you don't have all day, I'll just share three. So, the first one is like when there's women who are there, representation matters, right? So, when you have women in the space, they're more likely to consider women's priorities. And so, whether that be healthcare decisions that
Mhm.
impact women's bodies, addressing violence against women or community violence, or even affordable housing. We know that research has shown that the increased presence of women significantly impacts the movement of these sorts of issues onto
Mm.
agendas, right? So, just representation, we're more likely to call out these kinds of issues and opportunities to be able to improve conditions of women and children and others in the community. The second thing is cross-party working, right? So when you think about that, women are more likely to work collaboratively. So when there's issues that might require bipartisan support, we're more likely to get it done and, kind of reach across the aisle to be able to come up with a solution. And then the last thing, just in terms of numbers, we make up half of the population. And so it makes sense that we should be equally represented in terms of, number and population as well. So again, so many reasons, but I'm sure, the listeners can probably think of like 50 more reasons why women are important to be represented.
Hey, I listen, I am the father of three girls. I am a girl dad. And so I would sit there and say that women are a lot smarter than men many of the times. And so, and plus for me, when I think about my upbringing, how I got involved in politics and the people that I've worked for, honestly, either my direct supervisor or my boss at the end of the day was women. And so,
Mhm.
it's important that they are represented. It's important that they are at the table because a lot of the times they actually have some better ideas than we do as men. But again, I am a girl dad, so love my girls, and I want to make sure that their future is represented as well.
Absolutely.
Now, before I close, I think this has been great. I think we can continue to talk to Maya, but I always pose everybody on this program with one particular question, and that question is: tell me your favorite thing about our community right here within Milwaukee County. What is your favorite thing about Milwaukee County?
Ugh, so, that's a difficult question. Milwaukee is home for me. I was born and raised here. And
For
so,
sure.
hmm, I love the diversity of the people who have chosen to make Milwaukee their home. I love the fact that there are so many people who get up every day to do the best that they can so that they can take care of their families. And I would also have to say I love the fact that we have a beautiful lake and so many wonderful
Oh
parks.
yeah. Oh yes. Can't not like anything, but you have to love the parks, right? I think the parks is great.
Yeah.
But Samaya, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your leadership as well as your vision to move our community forward and to make it even stronger and healthier, and above all, more equitable every single day. We truly appreciate having you on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing time with me today. And I'm looking forward to continuing the work to improve the quality of life for people who live here.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And to our listeners, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Follow the Crowley Connect on YouTube, X, formerly known as Twitter, but also either Facebook or Instagram. Again, happy Women's History Month. And until the next time, I want to wish you and yours the very best. Stay safe. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Crowley Connect.